I poured champagne for billionaires who wouldn't remember my face 5 seconds after I handed them their glass. That was the point. Invisible, forgettable, safe. Until the night Damian Cross walked into my bar and everything I'd built to stay hidden came crashing down. If you're ready for a story about secret identities, dangerous revenge, and a love that could cost everything, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you will have you questioning every person you've ever underestimated. My name is Adrian Stone, and 3 years ago I was supposed to be dead. Another martini, extra dry. The woman's voice dripped with the kind of entitlement that came from never hearing the word no. She didn't look at me. None of them ever did. I was 26 years old, working the bar at Eclipse, Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop club where membership started at $50,000 a year, and the waiting list was longer than most people's retirement plans. I wore black, kept my head down, and mastered the art of being nobody. Right away, ma'am. I mixed her drink with the precision that came from 3 years of practice. 3 years of pretending to be someone I wasn't. The thing about hiding in plain sight is that you have to commit completely. I rented a studio apartment in Queens, rode the subway, ate ramen on my days off. I went to auditions for commercials I never booked, told people I was a struggling actor, became the cliché that New York thrived on. No one suspected that the bartender serving their drinks owned the building they were standing in. Adrian, table 7 needs a bottle of Dom. The 2008. Marcus, my manager, barely glanced at me as he rattled off orders. He had no idea he was actually my employee, that I'd hired him through 3 shell companies to run my club without knowing who really signed his paychecks. I grabbed the bottle, $3,000 of champagne I'd essentially be delivering to myself, and headed to table 7. That's when I saw her. Vivian Pierce sat like a queen holding court, surrounded by 5 other women who laughed too loud at everything she said. She wore white, a power move in a room full of black cocktail dresses, and diamonds that caught the light with every calculated gesture. My late fiancé's best friend. The woman who'd betrayed every secret Elena had ever trusted her with. The woman who'd smiled at Elena's funeral while secretly celebrating that her biggest competition was finally gone. I'd been watching Vivian for 3 years, waiting, learning her patterns, her weaknesses, her dirty secrets. She came to Eclipse every Friday with her circle of equally toxic friends, spent obscene amounts of money, and never once noticed the bartender who remembered every word she said. Tonight, that would change. Your Dom Perignon. I set the bottle down with the practiced deference of someone who knew his place. Finally, Vivian didn't look up from her phone. Open it. I popped the cork with theatrical precision, poured 6 glasses and waited. Actually, Vivian finally looked at me, her eyes scanning me like I was furniture. You look familiar. Do I know you? My heart stopped. 3 years of careful planning and she was looking at me. Really looking. I don't think so, ma'am. I'm just the bartender. I kept my voice neutral, slightly deferential. Nothing like the confident tone I'd used when I was Adrian Stone, tech billionaire, Elena's fiancé, the man who'd supposedly died in a boating accident off the coast of Greece. She dismissed me with a wave. Well, you're cute. Too bad you're poor. Her friends laughed. I smiled politely and walked away, every muscle in my body screaming to turn around and tell her exactly who I was. But revenge required patience, and I'd been patient for 3 years. I returned to the bar where Marcus was fielding complaints from a regular about the music being too loud. Adrian, can you handle table 12? They're asking for someone who actually knows about whiskey. Table 12. My pulse kicked up before I even turned around. Damian Cross sat alone, his presence commanding the space around him like gravity. 6'3" of dangerous elegance in a tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Dark hair pushed back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes so dark they looked black in the dim lighting. But it wasn't his looks that made every instinct in my body scream danger. It was the recognition in those eyes as they met mine across the room. He knew. Somehow, Damian Cross, billionaire, rumored Mafia connections, the man who'd built a security empire on secrets and surveillance, knew exactly who I was. If you're already hooked and wondering how this could possibly get more complicated, drop a comment telling me if you'd fake your own death for revenge. And stick around because we're just getting started. I approached his table with the careful control of someone walking toward a loaded gun. I hear you know whiskey. Damien's voice was smooth, educated, with an edge that suggested violence was always an option. I know enough to not insult a customer's palate. I kept my tone professional, my body language submissive. Everything I'd practiced. Really? He leaned back, studying me with the focus of a predator who just spotted prey. Then tell me, Adrian, or should I say, Adrian Stone, what would you recommend for someone who appreciates rare finds? The air left my lungs. 3 years of perfect cover, and this man had just blown it apart in 10 seconds. I'm sorry, sir, but I think you have me confused with the tech billionaire who supposedly drowned 3 years ago? Damien's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. The man who built Stone security systems before selling it for $2.3 billion? The man whose fiancée, Elena Martinez, died in a very suspicious car accident 6 months before his own convenient death. Every word was a knife. Every second he kept talking was another witness who might overhear. Sir, I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a bartender. You're just a bartender who owns this building, and the one next to it, and approximately 47 other properties across Manhattan under various LLC names. Damien pulled out his phone, turned it toward me. The screen showed a corporate structure diagram that had taken me months to create with my name, my real name, at the center. You're also just a bartender who's been systematically destroying Vivian Pierce's life from the shadows. The failed business deals, the investors who mysteriously pulled out, the scandal with her charity that's currently under investigation. All you. My hands clenched. What do you want? To talk. Privately. He stood, and I realized he was even taller than I'd thought. There's a private room upstairs. I believe you have the key since you own the place. I could run, disappear again, start over somewhere else. Or I could find out what Damien Cross wanted badly enough to expose me in the middle of my own club. 5 minutes, I said quietly. His smile widened. That's all I need. The private room on Eclipse's 3rd floor was designed for VIPs who needed discretion. Soundproof walls, no cameras, one door. I'd built it specifically for meetings I didn't want recorded. Ironic that I was now trapped in it with a man who just unraveled my entire existence. Sit. Damien gestured to the leather couch like he owned the place. In a way, he probably thought he did. Men like him thought they owned everything. I'll stand. Say what you came to say. 3 years ago, Elena Martinez died when her car went off a bridge in Connecticut. Police ruled it an accident, brake failure. Damien circled the room like a shark. 6 months later, you died in a boating accident in Greece. Also ruled accidental. No body ever recovered, but enough evidence to make it plausible. Convenient. If you're trying to blackmail me, I'm trying to help you. He stopped, facing me directly. Because Elena Martinez wasn't killed by brake failure. She was murdered. And I can prove it. The room tilted. 3 years of believing, of knowing in my gut but never having proof. And this stranger was offering me what I'd bled for. Why would you help me? Because Vivian Pierce didn't just betray your fiancée. She betrayed my sister. Damien's voice dropped to something lethal. Sophia Cross died 2 years ago. Overdose, they said. Tragic accident for a girl who'd struggled with addiction. Except Sophia was 18 months sober and had everything to live for. Until Vivian Pierce decided she was competition. What did Vivian do? Planted drugs in Sophia's apartment. Called the tabloids. Destroyed her reputation so thoroughly that when Sophia actually did die, murdered and staged to look like an overdose, everyone just assumed the troubled girl had finally given in. The pain in Damien's eyes was raw, real. I've spent 2 years gathering evidence. I know what Vivian is. I know what she's done. And I know you've spent 3 years planning to destroy her. So what? You want to team up? Compare revenge plans? I want to bury her so deep she never sees daylight again. Damien moved closer, and I could smell his cologne. Expensive, understated, dangerous. You have the financial resources. I have the connections and the evidence. Together, we can do what neither of us can do alone. Why should I trust you? Because right now, I'm the only person in the world who knows you're alive and hasn't tried to kill you or expose you. He pulled out a flash drive, set it on the table between us. That contains everything I have on Vivian Pierce. Financial crimes, blackmail, evidence of her involvement in both Elena's and Sophia's deaths. It's yours. No strings attached. Nothing's free. You're right. My price is simple. Damien's dark eyes locked onto mine. I want in on whatever you're planning. Full partnership. We destroy her together, or we don't destroy her at all. I looked at the flash drive, then back at the man who just turned my carefully controlled world into chaos. I work alone. You did work alone. For 3 years, hiding behind a bar, playing it safe, taking tiny bites out of her empire while she doesn't even know you exist. Damien leaned in, his voice dropping. How much longer were you planning to wait, Adrian? Another 3 years? 5? Until you're so buried in your fake identity that you forget who you really are. I know exactly who I am. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who's terrified of his own power. You have $2 billion and you're pouring drinks for people who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. You want revenge, but you're too afraid to actually take it. My hand shot out, grabbed his collar, slammed him against the wall before I even realized I'd moved. We were eye to eye, my breath coming hard, 3 years of rage finally finding a target. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you. Damien didn't fight back, didn't even look scared. I know you loved Elena Martinez so much that you died for her. I know you've been living like a ghost because you can't face the world that took her from you. I know you're brilliant and broken and you're wasting both by hiding in the shadows. Let me guess. You're going to save me? No. I'm going to use you. His honesty was somehow more disarming than any lie. I need your resources, your strategic mind, and your access to Vivian's world. You need my evidence, my connections, and someone who understands what it's like to lose everything to that woman. We use each other. We destroy her. And then we go our separate ways. I released him, stepped back, my hands shaking with adrenaline. One condition. No one else can know I'm alive. Not yet. Agreed. Your secret's safe. Damien straightened his suit, completely unfazed. So do we have a deal? I picked up the flash drive. I need to see what's on this first. Fair enough. Take your time. I'll be at the bar when you're ready to stop pretending you're not interested. He left, and I stood alone in the soundproof room, holding evidence I'd killed myself to find. I should have known this was too easy. I should have known Damien Cross was more dangerous than he appeared. I should have known that revenge, like everything else worth having, would cost me everything I had left. I opened my laptop, the real one I kept hidden, not the cheap thing I carried to maintain my cover, and plugged in the drive. What I found made me want to kill Vivian Pierce with my bare hands. Financial records showing she'd embezzled from Elena's charity, the one Elena had built to help women escaping domestic violence. Communications proving Vivian had paid a mechanic to tamper with Elena's brakes. Photographs of Vivian meeting with known criminals. And worst of all, a recorded conversation where Vivian laughed about Elena's death with one of her friends. She was always so naive. Vivian's voice came through crystal clear. Actually believed people were good. Made it almost too easy to take everything from her. The charity, the investors, even Adrian. He would have left her eventually anyway. I just accelerated the timeline. My hands fisted. She'd wanted me, had killed Elena to try to have me. The recording continued. And when he died too, honestly perfect. Tragic love story for the ages. Meanwhile, I'm finally free to build my empire without that sanctimonious bitch judging every move I make. I closed the laptop before I put my fist through it. Damien Cross hadn't just given me evidence. He'd given me nuclear weapons. And I was going to use every single one. I found Damien at the bar, drinking whiskey neat, looking completely at ease in my club, surrounded by my fake life. Well, he didn't turn around. Somehow knew I was there. I'm in. But we do this my way. Which is, slowly, methodically. We don't just destroy her. We dismantle her piece by piece until there's nothing left but the truth of what she really is. I slid onto the stool next to him. And when she's at her absolute lowest, when she's lost everything and everyone, that's when I tell her who I really am. Damien's smile was predatory. I knew I liked you. Don't. This isn't friendship. This is business. Even better, I don't trust friends. But I trust people who want the same thing I want. He raised his glass. To revenge. To justice. I corrected. Same thing if you do it right. We clinked glasses and I felt something shift. 3 years of hiding, of being small, of swallowing every instinct that made me who I was. It was over. Adrian Stone, the bartender, was about to disappear. And the man who'd supposedly died 3 years ago was about to remind the world exactly why they should have made sure I stayed dead. The next morning, I woke up in my studio apartment in Queens, 400 square feet of carefully maintained poverty, and made a decision. It was time to start living again. I texted Damien from a burner phone. Asterisk, we need a secure location. Somewhere Vivian's people can't track. Asterisk. His response came 30 seconds later. Asterisk, I have a place. Send me your real address. I'll pick you up in an hour. Asterisk. I stared at the message. Giving Damien my address meant trusting him with the location of my safe house, the place where I kept everything that mattered, Elena's belongings, my real documents, the life I'd left behind. But if I was going to do this, I had to commit. I sent him an address in Tribeca, the penthouse I'd bought under a shell company, the place where Adrian Stone actually lived when he wasn't pretending to be broke. Damien's response. Asterisk, interesting. See you soon. Asterisk. 57 minutes later, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up outside. The driver, built like a tank with the alertness of private security, opened the door. Damien sat in the back, wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Jeans, a black Henley, leather jacket. Somehow he looked more dangerous dressed down. Nice place, he said as I climbed in. The penthouse with the panic room and the private elevator. Very paranoid of you. How did you? I've known where you really live for 6 months. I know where you bank, where you invest, which offshore accounts you use to move money. I know everything, Adrian. I told you that. The SUV pulled away from the curb, and I realized I just willingly trapped myself in a car with a man who could destroy me. If you've known for 6 months, why approach me now? Because 6 months ago you weren't ready. You were still playing bartender, convincing yourself that small acts of financial sabotage were enough. Damien turned to face me fully. But last week you transferred $5 million to a private investigation firm. You were escalating, getting bolder. I knew it was time. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone connected to Vivian Pierce. You just happened to be the most interesting. His smile was sharp. Also the most useful. We drove for 20 minutes, leaving Manhattan, crossing into New Jersey. The buildings got sparser, the roads more isolated. Where are we going? Somewhere I can show you what we're really dealing with. Damien's expression darkened. You've seen the evidence on Vivian. Now I need to show you who she works for. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, who she works for? Vivian Pierce isn't the top of the food chain. She's middle management for something much bigger. An organization that's been operating in Manhattan's elite circles for decades. They specialize in eliminating competition, hostile takeovers, character assassination, and when necessary, actual assassination. He met my eyes. Elena wasn't Vivian's first victim. She was just the most personal. The SUV turned down a private road, through gates that opened automatically, toward a massive estate that looked like something out of a mob movie. Welcome to my home, Damien said quietly. And my war room. The estate was fortress and luxury combined. High walls, surveillance cameras, guards stationed at strategic points. But inside it was all dark wood and leather, art that probably belonged in museums, and the kind of quiet that came from thick walls and isolated locations. Damien led me through the main house to a door that required a fingerprint scan, down a flight of stairs, into a basement that had been converted into something between a tech hub and a military command center. 3 walls were covered in screens, documents, photographs. A massive digital map of Manhattan showed connections between people, businesses, properties. At the center of it all, highlighted in red, the Providence Group. What am I looking at? A criminal organization masquerading as a venture capital firm. They've been operating for 37 years, embedded so deep in Manhattan's power structure that most people think they're legitimate. Damien pulled up files on the main screen. They specialize in corporate espionage, blackmail, and targeted elimination of competition. Vivian Pierce has been working for them for 8 years. Photos of Vivian meeting with various people, politicians, CEOs, society figures, all of them connected by red lines to the Providence Group. Elena's charity, Damien continued, was competing for funding with a Providence-backed organization. Elena was winning. She was too charismatic, too effective, too beloved. So they decided she needed to be removed. Vivian volunteered for the job. And your sister? Sophia was dating the son of a Providence Group founding member. He was supposed to marry someone from an approved family, consolidate power, merge empires. Sophia was a complication. Damien's voice was hollow. They made her disappear and made sure everyone believed she'd done it to herself. I stared at the evidence, the scope of it overwhelming. I thought I was hunting one woman. I was actually hunting a hydra. Why not just go to the police? With evidence like this. The Providence Group owns half the police force, 3 judges, and enough lawyers to bury any case that gets close. I've tried the legal route. It doesn't work. Damien turned to me, and I saw the same rage I carried reflected in his eyes. That's why I need you. You understand that sometimes justice requires getting your hands dirty. What exactly are you proposing? We take down the Providence Group. Not just Vivian, the entire organization. We expose every crime, every connection, every person they've killed or destroyed. We burn it all down. He pulled up another screen showing a list of names. These are the founding members. 6 families that have controlled Manhattan's underground economy for nearly 4 decades. We systematically dismantle each one. That's not revenge. That's war. Exactly. And wars require soldiers willing to do whatever it takes. Damien stepped closer. You have the financial resources. I have the intelligence network and the connections. Together, we can do what no one else has managed. We can destroy them completely. I should have walked away. Should have recognized that this was insane. That we were 2 broken men planning to take on an organization that had thrived for decades. Instead, I asked, where do we start? Damien's smile was beautiful and terrifying. With Vivian, we take her down first, publicly and completely. Then we use her to get to the others. How? Vivian is ambitious. She thinks she's going to become a full partner in the Providence Group. They've been dangling that promotion for 3 years. What she doesn't know is that they're planning to eliminate her. She's become too visible, too reckless. They're going to stage her suicide in the next 6 months. You have proof of this? I have someone on the inside. Someone who's been feeding me information for the past year. Damien pulled up a photo. A woman, mid-30s, professional, familiar in a way I couldn't place. Her name is Rebecca Winters. She's the Providence Group's CFO, and she's been waiting for someone brave enough to help her bring them down from the inside. Why would she betray them? Because they murdered her husband when he discovered what they really were. Staged it as a suicide, left her with a 6-year-old daughter and a reputation as the wife who drove her husband to kill himself. Damien's voice was quiet. Rebecca's been playing the long game even longer than you have, Adrian. And she's ready to move. The scope of what Damien was proposing hit me fully. This wasn't just revenge. It was orchestrating the downfall of an entire criminal empire. I need to think about this. No, you don't. Damien's certainty was absolute. You've already decided. The moment you saw that evidence on Vivian, you knew you couldn't walk away. The moment you learned Elena's death was part of something bigger, you knew you had to see it through. He was right. I'd spent 3 years preparing for a war I didn't know I was fighting. One rule, I said. We do this clean. We expose them, destroy them, but we don't become them. No innocent people get hurt. Agreed. This is about justice, not chaos. Damien extended his hand. Partners. I looked at his hand, at the man who'd walked into my life and turned it inside out, at the choice that would define everything that came next. I shook his hand. Partners. If you're still with me on this insane journey, drop a like and let me know in the comments. Would you team up with a stranger to take down a criminal empire? Because we're about to take this to a whole new level. The plan Damien and I developed over the next 3 weeks was meticulous, brutal, and required perfect timing. Phase 1. Destroy Vivian's reputation within the Providence Group by making her look incompetent and unstable. Phase 2. Turn her against the organization by making her believe they were planning to eliminate her. Phase 3. Use Vivian to expose the Providence Group's crimes. Then take her down for Elena's murder. It was elegant. It was ruthless. It required me to go back to Eclipse and play bartender while orchestrating a takedown that would shake Manhattan's elite to its core. You ready? Damien asked the night we launched Phase 1. I adjusted my Eclipse uniform, black shirt, black pants, the costume of invisibility I'd worn for 3 years. Let's burn it down. The first move was subtle. A rumor planted in the right ears that Vivian had been skimming money from her projects. Not true, but believable enough to make people look twice. The second move was a failed business deal. A merger Vivian had been working on for 6 months that fell apart at the last second. Damien had one of his contacts pull out, citing concerns about irregularities in the financial projections. The third move was personal. We leaked photos of Vivian with a married Providence Group board member. Not fake. She'd actually been sleeping with him, but photos that had been carefully kept private. Until now. Within 2 weeks, Vivian went from rising star to liability. I watched it happen from behind the bar at Eclipse, serving her drinks while she slowly unraveled. I don't understand what's happening, she said one Friday night, drunk and unguarded in a way I'd never seen. Everything's falling apart. Maybe it's just bad luck, one of her friends offered. There's no such thing as bad luck. Only enemies. Vivian's eyes were wild. Someone's targeting me. Someone who knows too much. She had no idea how right she was. Phase 2 began exactly 3 weeks after we started. Rebecca Winters, the Providence Group CFO and our inside contact, arranged a meeting with Vivian under the guise of discussing her future with the organization. Damien and I listened through a wire Rebecca wore. Vivian, I need to be honest with you. Rebecca's voice was perfectly calibrated. Concerned, reluctant, just scared enough to be believable. There's been talk at the board level about your recent difficulties. Difficulties? I've been sabotaged. I know, and that's what concerns them. Someone with the skills to sabotage you this effectively is someone who knows too much about your methods. Your history. A pause. They're worried you've become a liability. Silence. Then Vivian's voice, tight with fear. What are you saying? I'm saying that the board is considering permanent solutions. I've seen the discussions, Vivian. They're planning to eliminate you. Stage it like a suicide drug overdose. Something that fits the narrative of a woman under too much stress. When? 3 months. Maybe less. They're just waiting for the right moment. When your instability will seem most believable. More silence. Then, what do? You survive. And the only way to survive the Providence Group is to destroy them before they destroy you. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. I can help you, but you have to be willing to burn it all down. Why would you help me? Because they murdered my husband. And I've been waiting for someone desperate enough to help me take them down. Vivian was in. She believed the lie because it was wrapped in enough truth to be plausible. And desperate people make reckless choices. Over the next month, Vivian became our weapon. She gave Rebecca access to files, records, communications. She documented crimes thinking she was building leverage against the Providence Group. What she was actually doing was building the case that would destroy her. She has no idea, Damien said as we reviewed the evidence Vivian had handed over. Financial crimes, bribery, blackmail, and buried deep in her own files. Proof of her involvement in Elena's murder. How long until we move to Phase 3? 2 weeks. There's a Providence Group gala, All the founding families will be there, including Vivian. Rebecca has arranged for evidence to be presented to the board that evening, supposedly exposing a traitor. Vivian thinks the traitor is someone else. She's wrong. And then we reveal everything. The Providence Group's crimes, Vivian's crimes, and... Damien looked at me carefully. Your resurrection. My stomach nodded. Going public meant ending 3 years of carefully maintained death. It meant facing questions, scrutiny, the life I'd abandoned. Are you ready for that? Damien asked. Once you step back into Adrian Stone's life, there's no going back to being invisible. I stopped being invisible the moment I shook your hand. The Providence Group Gala was held at the Crown, a private club in Midtown that made Eclipse look like a dive bar. Old money, older secrets, and enough combined wealth to buy a small country. I stood outside in a suit that fit like a second skin, looking every inch the billionaire I'd been 3 years ago. My hair was different, longer than I'd worn it before, and I'd grown a beard during my years as a bartender. But the bones of my face were the same. Anyone who'd known Adrian Stone would recognize me. That was the point. You look terrified, Damien said beside me. Equally well-dressed, equally dangerous. I am terrified. Good. Means you're not stupid. He adjusted his cufflinks. Rebecca's inside, ready to drop the evidence bomb. Vivian's inside, thinking she's about to watch someone else get destroyed. And every founding family member of the Providence Group is about to discover they've been exposed. What if this doesn't work? Then we die. Damien said it so casually that I almost laughed. But we'll die knowing we tried. That's more than most people can say. We walked in together, and I felt every eye in the room turn toward us. Whispers started immediately. I could see people trying to place my face, confused by the familiarity they couldn't quite pin down. Vivian stood near the bar, holding court as always, still beautiful, still confident, still completely unaware that her world was about to implode. She saw me, and I watched the confusion cross her face, the recognition that she knew this face, but couldn't remember from where. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Winter's voice cut through the murmur of conversation as she stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room. If I could have your attention. The room quieted. Every Providence Group founding family member turned toward Rebecca. 6 families that had controlled Manhattan's shadows for decades. I've been your CFO for 8 years, Rebecca continued. I've kept your books, hidden your crimes, and maintained the fiction that you're legitimate business people. Tonight, that ends. Chaos erupted. Security moved toward the stage, but Damien's people, positioned strategically throughout the room, stopped them. You see, Rebecca continued calmly, I've spent the last year documenting everything. Every bribe, every blackmail scheme, every murder you've ordered or covered up. And I've sent it all to the FBI, the SEC, the IRS, and several very interested journalists. She pulled up a screen behind her. Financial records, communication logs, photographs, a web of corruption spanning decades. But that's not all. I also have evidence of specific crimes. The screen changed to show Vivian's face. Vivian Pierce, you're particularly well documented. Embezzlement, fraud, blackmail, and the screen showed Elena's car accident report. Murder. Vivian's face went white. That's not, you can't. I can. And I have. But there's someone else who deserves to confront you. Rebecca looked directly at me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to reintroduce you to Adrian Stone. Not dead as you believed. Very much alive. And very interested in justice for his murdered fiancée. I stepped forward, and the room exploded into noise. People shouting, security trying to restore order, founding family members attempting to leave only to find the doors locked. But I only saw Vivian. She stared at me like I was a ghost made flesh, her perfect composure finally shattering. Hello, Vivian, I said quietly. Surprise. But you. She couldn't form words. Dead? Yes, I let you all believe that. Made it easier to investigate Elena's murder without interference. I moved closer and she backed away. 3 years, Vivian. 3 years I've spent learning every secret, every crime, every person you've hurt. And now everyone knows exactly what you are. I didn't kill Elena. You tampered with her brakes. You paid off a mechanic. You watched her crash and did nothing to save her. And then you laughed about it. My voice was cold, empty of everything but truth. I have recordings, evidence, witnesses. You're done. FBI agents flooded into the room. Rebecca had coordinated the timing perfectly. They moved through the crowd, arresting founding family members who were on the evidence list, seizing documents, recording everything. An agent approached Vivian. Vivian Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and racketeering. As they cuffed her, Vivian looked at me with something like desperation. I loved you. Everything I did it because I loved you. You killed the woman I loved. That's not love. That's obsession. I leaned in close enough that only she could hear. And you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison knowing that the bartender you dismissed, the nobody you never noticed, was the one who destroyed you. They led her away, and I felt Damien's hand on my shoulder. It's done, he said quietly. Is it? The Providence Group is finished. Every founding member is being arrested. Rebecca's evidence is airtight. And Vivian Pierce is going away for the rest of her life. He paused. You won, Adrian. But standing in that room, watching the empire crumble, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Elena was still dead. Sophia was still dead. 3 years of my life were still gone. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this. The aftermath was a media firestorm. Billionaire back from the dead, criminal empire exposed. Manhattan's elite hiding decades of crime. My face was everywhere. My story dissected by everyone who had an opinion about faking your death and living as a bartender for 3 years. I gave one interview, just one, to a journalist Rebecca trusted, someone who would tell the story accurately instead of turning it into tabloid fodder. Why did you fake your death? The journalist asked, her recorder sitting between us on the table. Because the people who killed Elena thought they'd won. And I needed them to believe that. I needed to be invisible so I could see everything they were hiding. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Grief makes you do things you never thought you were capable of. For me, that meant dying so I could learn how to destroy the people who took everything from me. Do you regret it? Every single day. But I'd do it again if it meant getting justice for Elena. The interview went viral. Some people called me a hero. Others called me obsessed, unstable, dangerous. I didn't care about any of it. I cared about the fact that Vivian Pierce's trial was set for 3 months from now, and every piece of evidence I'd gathered over 3 years would finally be used to put her away forever. 2 weeks after the gala, I was back in the Eclipse penthouse. Not the one in Queens, but my real home in Tribeca, when Damien showed up unannounced. We need to talk, he said, walking past me into the living room like he owned the place. Make yourself at home, I muttered, closing the door. There's a problem. Damien pulled out his phone, showed me a news article. Vivian's lawyers are claiming she was coerced by the Providence Group, that she was a victim following orders, afraid for her life. They're trying to paint her as sympathetic. That's ridiculous. The evidence shows she committed crimes. It doesn't conclusively prove she wasn't being threatened into doing them. Damien's expression was grim. Her lawyers are good, Adrian. Really good. They're arguing that without her direct confession or testimony from someone who can prove she acted willingly, the murder charge might not stick. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying we need someone from inside the Providence Group to testify that Vivian volunteered for Elena's murder. That she wasn't ordered to do it. She asked for the job. He paused. And I know someone who can provide that testimony. Who? Marcus Chun. He was a Providence Group enforcer for 12 years before he tried to get out. They let him leave because he was smart enough to keep insurance, recordings, documents, proof of everything he witnessed, including the meeting where Vivian volunteered to eliminate Elena. Where is he? Witness protection. He's been hiding for 3 years, same as you. But he'll testify if we can guarantee his safety. Damien met my eyes. I need you to help me extract him and get him to the prosecutor. It's going to be dangerous. The Providence Group still has loyalists who want to silence anyone who can testify against them. When do we leave? Tomorrow night. Pack light and bring nothing that can be traced back to your real identity. We're going dark for this. Damien headed for the door, then stopped. Adrian, after this is over, after Vivian's convicted and the Providence Group is completely dismantled, what are you going to do? I hadn't let myself think that far ahead. For 3 years, revenge had been my entire purpose. Without it, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I don't know. Well, figure it out. Because you're too young to spend the rest of your life mourning a ghost. His voice softened. Elena wouldn't want that for you. He left, and I stood alone in my penthouse, surrounded by luxury I'd barely touched in 3 years, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do with a life I'd never expected to have back. The next night, Damien and I drove to a small town in upstate New York where Marcus Chun had been living under the name David Park, working as a mechanic, staying invisible the same way I had. He's paranoid, Damien warned as we approached the modest house on a quiet street. He's been looking over his shoulder for 3 years. Don't make any sudden moves. I knocked. Once. Twice. A security camera above the door swiveled to focus on us. Marcus Chun, my name is Adrian Stone. Damien Cross is with me. We need your help to put Vivian Pierce in prison for murder. Silence. Then the door opened a crack, revealing a man in his 40s, Asian features, tired eyes that had seen too much. Adrian Stone, the billionaire who died and came back. Marcus's voice was rough. Damien told me about you, said you were the real deal. Can we come in? He studied us for a long moment, then opened the door fully. The house was sparse, ready to be abandoned at a moment's notice. Go bags by the door, minimal furniture, nothing personal on the walls. You want me to testify against Vivian Pierce? Marcus said, not a question. We need you to testify that she volunteered to kill my fiancée, that she wasn't coerced or threatened, that she wanted to do it. I kept my voice steady. Without your testimony, her lawyers might get the murder charge reduced or dismissed. And if I testify, what's to stop the Providence Group from killing me the second I step into that courtroom? The Providence Group's leadership is in federal custody. Their assets are frozen. Their network is collapsing. Damien pulled out a folder, handed it to Marcus. This is a list of every arrested member, every seized property, every frozen account. They're done. Marcus flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. There are always loyalists, true believers who'll carry out revenge even when the empire's fallen. We have a protection plan, I said. FBI escort, safe house, new identity after the trial if you want it. Or, I paused. You could stay visible. Help us rebuild what the Providence Group destroyed. You have inside knowledge that could help prevent organizations like them from forming again. Why would I want to stay visible? I've spent 3 years hiding. So did I. And I'm done hiding. I met his eyes. The world took things from both of us. People we loved. Lives we wanted. We can keep hiding from that, or we can use what we know to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then, when's the trial? 6 weeks. The prosecution needs your testimony to seal the murder conviction. Fine, I'll testify. But after that, I disappear again. No hero work, no crusade. I've done my part. He grabbed one of the go bags by the door. Let's move. If you found me, someone else might too. We made it back to the city without incident, got Marcus settled in a FBI safe house, and spent the next 6 weeks preparing for the trial that would finally put Vivian Pierce away forever. The prosecution built their case like a fortress. Financial crimes, racketeering, conspiracy, and at the center of it all, first-degree murder for Elena's death. I sat in the courtroom every single day, watching Vivian try to play the victim. She wore modest clothes, minimal makeup, looked small and scared in a way I'd never seen her before. Her lawyers painted her as a woman trapped by a criminal organization, forced to commit crimes under threat of death, a victim of circumstance who deserved sympathy. Then Marcus Chun took the stand. Mr. Chun, you were present at a Providence Group meeting in March, 3 years ago, correct? The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Lynn, sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. Yes. Can you tell the court what was discussed at that meeting? Marcus's voice was steady, clear. The Providence Group had identified Elena Martinez as a problem. Her charity was outperforming a Providence-backed organization, drawing donor attention and funding away from their operation. The board decided she needed to be eliminated. Murmurs through the courtroom. The judge called for order. What happened next? Several methods were proposed. Make it look like an accident. Frame her for embezzlement. Destroy her reputation so thoroughly that she'd lose all credibility. But before the board could decide, Marcus looked directly at Vivian. Vivian Pierce volunteered. Volunteered for what? To kill Elena Martinez personally. She said, and I quote, "I know her. I can get close without raising suspicion. Let me handle this. It'll be my proof that I'm ready for full partnership." The courtroom erupted. Vivian's lawyers objected, demanded the testimony be stricken, but the judge overruled them. Did anyone threaten or coerce Miss Pierce into volunteering? No. She was eager, excited even. She saw it as an opportunity to prove herself. Marcus's expression was hollow. I've seen a lot of terrible things working for the Providence Group, but watching someone volunteer to murder their best friend for a promotion, that was the moment I knew I had to get out. The prosecution played the recording Marcus had kept. Vivian's voice, clear and unmistakable, volunteering to handle the Elena problem, and promising it would look like a perfect accident. I watched Vivian's face crumble as the jury heard her own words, watched her lawyers scramble to discredit the evidence, to claim it was fabricated or taken out of context. But the damage was done. When my turn to testify came, I told the truth. About loving Elena, about planning to marry her, about the phone call telling me she was dead, about spending 3 years as a ghost, gathering evidence, waiting for the moment when I could finally make Vivian pay for what she'd done. Mr. Stone, Vivian's defense attorney stood, trying to rattle me. Isn't it true that you faked your own death to avoid legal consequences for corporate fraud? No. Isn't it true that you've been obsessed with my client for years, that this entire case is built on a jilted lover's fantasy? I loved Elena Martinez. My voice cut through his theatrics. Your client murdered her for a promotion. I didn't fake my death to avoid consequences. I faked it to find the truth. And I found it. Every piece of evidence, every recording, every witness confirms what I've known for 3 years. Vivian Pierce is a murderer. The trial lasted for weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, conspiracy, racketeering, fraud. Vivian Pierce was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I sat in that courtroom and watched the woman who'd killed Elena get led away in handcuffs, and all I felt was empty. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions came from every direction. Mr. Stone, how does it feel to finally get justice? Are you planning to return to the tech industry? What's next for you? I looked at Damien, who stood beside me, silent support in the chaos. What's next? I said into the microphone someone thrust at me. Is rebuilding. The Providence Group destroyed lives for decades. Elena's charity, the one Vivian helped destroy, will be rebuilt and fully funded. And I'm establishing a foundation to help victims of organized crime. People like Marcus Chen, like Rebecca Winters, like everyone who suffered because criminals hide behind legitimate business. Is this about Elena's legacy? This is about making sure what happened to Elena never happens to anyone else. I paused. And yes, it's about legacy. It's about making sure she's remembered for the good she tried to do, not just as a victim of someone else's greed. I left the courthouse, ignoring the remaining questions, and found myself standing on the steps looking out at a city that suddenly felt full of possibility instead of ghosts. Damien appeared beside me. You okay? I thought I'd feel different, triumphant or satisfied or something. Instead, I just feel tired. That's because revenge doesn't heal anything. It just closes the wound so you can start actually healing. He checked his phone. Rebecca wants to meet. She has a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? The kind that involves using your resources and her organizational skills to do something meaningful with the mess we've made. His smile was slight. Apparently, dismantling a criminal empire leaves a vacuum. She wants to help you fill it with something that doesn't destroy people. We met Rebecca at a cafe in the West Village, far from the courthouse and the media circus. She looked different without the corporate armor. Softer, more human. Like someone who'd finally put down a weight she'd been carrying too long. Adrian. She stood, shook my hand. Congratulations. Justice served. Thanks to you. Without your evidence, without your resources and determination, I'd still be trapped working for people I hated, unable to do anything about my husband's murder. She gestured for us to sit. Which brings me to why I wanted to meet. I have a proposal. She pulled out a tablet, showed us a business plan that was ambitious and idealistic and exactly the kind of thing Elena would have loved. The Providence Group operated for decades because they filled a need. People wanted problems solved quietly, competition eliminated, obstacles removed. They just did it through crime. Rebecca swiped through slides. I want to create something legitimate that does the same thing. A firm that helps businesses compete fairly, that uses legal means to level playing fields, that protects people from exactly the kind of predatory behavior the Providence Group specialized in. A white-hat Providence Group, Damien said, essentially, using strategy, resources, and legal means to fight corruption instead of perpetuate it. Rebecca looked at me. You have the money to fund it. I have the inside knowledge of how these organizations operate. Damien has the security infrastructure. Together, we could build something that actually helps people. I thought about Elena, about how she'd spent her life trying to help people no one else cared about how she'd believed that good could win if it was strategic enough, organized enough, backed by enough resources. Elena would have loved this, I said quietly. I know. I read about her work, about the charity she built. This would be an extension of that, protecting people from predators, helping underdogs compete against corporate corruption. Rebecca's expression was earnest. What do you say? I looked at Damien, who shrugged. I'm in if you are. Beating up criminals is more fun than hosting galas. Anyway, I laughed, surprising myself. When was the last time I'd actually laughed? Okay, let's do it. I extended my hand to Rebecca. Partners. Partners. If you've made it this far in this insane journey, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what would you do with a second chance at life after revenge? Because we're about to find out. 6 months later, Stone Winters Consulting opened its doors in a building I owned in Midtown. We specialized in helping small businesses compete against corporate giants, protecting whistleblowers, and dismantling predatory business practices through legal means and strategic pressure. Rebecca ran operations. Damien handled security and investigation. I provided funding and strategy, using everything I'd learned during 3 years of hiding and investigating. We took cases no one else would touch. A small restaurant being muscled out by a corrupt property developer. A whistleblower being threatened by a pharmaceutical company. A family losing their business to predatory lending. And we won. Not every time, but enough times that people started believing David could actually beat Goliath if David had the right resources. Elena's charity was rebuilt, bigger and better funded than before. We named the new building after her, the Elena Martinez Center for Women's Empowerment. It opened on what would have been her 32nd birthday. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, surrounded by the women Elena had helped and the women we were helping now, and finally felt like I was honoring her memory instead of just avenging her death. She would have been proud of you, Damien said beside me. He'd become something I never expected after our partnership began. A genuine friend. She would have been disappointed it took me this long to do something productive. I watched the women filing into the center, hope on their faces. 3 years of revenge when I could have been building this the whole time. You weren't ready then. You had to go through the fire before you could build something new from the ashes. Damien checked his watch. Speaking of which, we have that meeting with the nonprofit coalition in an hour, right? The one where I have to convince 20 skeptical organizations that a former dead billionaire actually wants to help them without strings attached. You'll be fine. You're surprisingly likable when you're not plotting revenge. Life settled into something resembling normal. I went back to being Adrian Stone publicly, stopped hiding behind bartender uniforms and fake identities, gave speeches at business schools about corporate responsibility, testified before Congress about closing loopholes that enabled organizations like the Providence Group. But at night, alone in my penthouse, I still felt Elena's absence like a physical wound. I visited her grave on Sundays, brought fresh flowers, told her about the center and the people we were helping. "I'm trying," I said one Sunday evening, sitting on the grass beside her headstone. "I'm trying to be the person you believed I could be instead of the person who died with you. Some days it's easier than others." She knows. The voice behind me made me turn. A woman stood there, mid-30s, holding flowers. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I'm Carmen. I was one of the first women Elena's charity helped, 6 years ago. I come here sometimes to thank her. She helped you. Saved my life, more accurately. I was leaving an abusive marriage with nothing. Elena's charity gave me legal help, job training, housing support. Everything I needed to start over." Carmen's smile was soft. "I heard what you did, taking down the people who killed her, building the new center. She'd be proud." "I hope so. I know so, because Elena used to talk about you all the time. How brilliant you were, how dedicated, how you saw potential in people that others missed." Carmen set her flowers on a nearby grave. "She used to say that you were capable of extraordinary things if you ever got out of your own way. Looks like you finally did." She left, and I sat there thinking about potential and second chances and all the ways grief can either destroy you or remake you into something stronger. I chose stronger. For Elena. For myself. For all the people who needed someone to prove that good could win if it fought smart instead of just fought hard. A year after Vivian's conviction, I was invited to speak at a tech conference. From revenge to redemption. Building purpose after loss. Standing on that stage, looking out at thousands of people, I told the truth about the last 4 years. The grief, the rage, the 3 years spent being someone else. The revenge that had consumed me. And finally, the work that was healing me. I thought destroying the person who killed Elena would make me feel whole again. I said. It didn't. Revenge closed the wound, but it didn't heal anything. What's healing me is continuing her work, building on her legacy, helping the people she would have helped if she were still here. So if there's anyone out there who's lost someone, who's drowning in grief or rage or the need for justice, I see you. I've been you. And I'm telling you that there's a path forward that doesn't end with you becoming the thing you hate. It ends with you becoming the thing the world needs. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of people approached me with their own stories of loss and revenge and learning to rebuild. One woman in particular stood out. Early 30s, South Asian features, intelligent eyes that held both pain and hope. "Mr. Stone, I'm Priya Kapoor. I lost my brother to a corporate scandal 3 years ago. Pharmaceutical company covered up drug side effects. He was one of the victims. I've spent the last 3 years trying to get justice through legal channels. It's not working." Her voice was steady but desperate. "I heard what you and your partners do. Could you help?" I looked at Damien and Rebecca, who'd attended the conference with me. They both nodded. "Yes," I told Priya. "We can help. Tell us everything." 6 months later, we'd built a case against the pharmaceutical company that resulted in a massive settlement for victims' families, criminal charges against executives who'd covered up the evidence, and new FDA regulations to prevent similar cover-ups. Priya joined our firm afterward, bringing her legal expertise and her passion for justice. She fit perfectly into what we were building, a team of people who'd been broken by loss and were putting themselves back together by protecting others. "Do you ever regret it?" Priya asked me one day as we reviewed cases. "The 3 years you spent hiding?" "Every day. But I also know I wasn't capable of this." I gestured at our office, at the cases we were handling, at the people we were helping. "Until I'd been through that. Sometimes you have to completely fall apart before you can rebuild yourself into something better." That's either very wise or very good rationalization. Probably both. 2 years after Elena's death, I met someone. I didn't mean to, wasn't looking for it. But Maya walked into our office with a case about housing discrimination, and something about the way she fought for her clients reminded me that the world was still full of people worth knowing. We took her case. Won it. She asked me to dinner to celebrate. I should say no, I told Damien. It's too soon. I'm not ready. It's been 2 years. Elena wouldn't want you to spend your entire life alone. He paused. And you're allowed to be happy again, Adrian. It doesn't dishonor her memory. I went to dinner. Then another. Then another. Maya was nothing like Elena. Where Elena had been soft and idealistic, Maya was sharp and pragmatic. Where Elena saw the best in everyone, Maya saw the world clearly and fought for it anyway. I'm not looking for anything serious, I told her after the 3rd date. Good. Neither am I. But I like you. You're damaged, but you're doing something with it. That's rare. We dated casually for 6 months. Then seriously for another 6. And one day I realized I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy in a way I hadn't been since before Elena died. I feel guilty, I admitted to Damien over drinks. Like I'm betraying Elena by moving on. You're not betraying her. You're living. There's a difference. Damien set down his glass. Elena's gone, Adrian. You honored her memory, got justice for her death, and built something meaningful from the tragedy. Now you're allowed to have a life. She'd want that for you. How do you know? Because I'd want that for Sophia. If our positions were reversed, if I died and she'd survived, I'd want her to find happiness again. Love again. Live the life I couldn't. His voice was rough with emotion. The people we love don't die wanting us to suffer forever. They die wanting us to keep living. 3 years after Elena's death, I proposed to Maya. Not because she was replacing Elena, but because she was herself, brilliant and fierce and someone who made me want to be better. She said yes. We got married at the Elena Martinez Center, surrounded by the people whose lives had been changed by the work we were doing. Rebecca, Damien, Priya, Marcus, Carmen, all the people who'd been broken and had chosen to rebuild themselves into something stronger. Elena would have liked her, Rebecca said during the reception, watching Maya laugh with a group of the center's clients. I think so too. They would have been friends. I paused. Is that weird? That I think my dead fiancé would have approved of my wife. It's healthy. It means you've made peace with the past while building a future. That's exactly what healing looks like. 5 years after faking my death, I stood in front of the Supreme Court with Rebecca, Damien, and our team, having just argued a case that would change corporate accountability laws nationwide. We won. That evening, I visited Elena's grave one last time before heading home to Maya. I did it, I told the headstone. I honored your legacy, got justice for your death, and built something that would make you proud. And now I'm going to keep living. Not because I've forgotten you, but because I finally understand that the best way to honor someone you've lost is to become the person they believed you could be. I left the flowers, left the grief, left the ghost I'd been chasing for 5 years, and went home to the life I'd built from the ashes. The billion-dollar bartender was gone. The man who'd faked his death for revenge was gone. All that remained was Adrian Stone, alive and fighting and finally at peace. The end. If you made it all the way through this journey from grief to revenge to redemption, drop a comment and let me know what part hit you hardest. And don't forget to subscribe because I have more stories about people who lost everything and rebuilt themselves into something stronger. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's becoming so successful, so purposeful, so genuinely happy that their betrayal becomes just another chapter in a much bigger story. Thanks for watching. Now go build something beautiful from your own ashes.